we've just got, the speakers have been really good at keeping to time. We've got 10 minutes now of questions of either Philip or of Andrew or of Kilvir or Mustak, who I said is standing in to deal with questions to do with the Highway Maintenance Efficiency Programme. So questions from wherever, if you could say who you are. The questions have been recorded, aren't they? So we're going to try and catch it. Okay, question number 2 over there, by the look of it.
Yeah, thank you. Ian Lake, Surrey County Council, portfolio holder for transport. Often we are the representatives of the people, and they come back up to us with problems on the highways. And when we explain to them if they want, say, Puffing Crossing that's going to cost, £150,000, they say, well, why? I can build a 3-bedroom house for that at the end of the day. And I think there's a balance to be struck when we work with our contractors to negotiate new ways of working and all the rest of it. There are certain things which the public will never understand, the issues we have in terms of health and safety and all the rest of it. And I think that's something that we need to address, because the costs of some of the projects that we have to do are just exorbitant, frankly, and the public just do not understand that, and it's very hard to sell.
Who wants to pick up
that? I think you're absolutely right. The public don't understand the immense amount of cost that gets built into doing something that they feel is something relatively simple. And I think it's a message that has been coming through this morning, that we do need to integrate better with the people who do the work, the industry, to understand how we can be more lean in terms of some of these costs. Sometimes the driver for change is a position where we have no option. And at the moment, we're coming to the point where we have no option but to face reductions in budgets, but we must deliver certain works. And I think that'll help, drive some of that kind of efficiency through in terms of whether it's health and safety costs, whether it's the feasibility costs, whether it's the protracted amount of reviews and discussions and consultations. Some of that from our side as policymakers and representatives, but also from industry as well. So I think it's a joint process, and we have to drive down those costs.
I think I would add this wider issue that was raised earlier by the speakers about communications and engagement with the members of the public, seeing this as a service delivery rather than just in terms of assets. I noticed in the audience there's David Cornby who did a review for us on winter resilience. We've had 3 years on the trot of some challenging situations with salt and other issues, and some of the examples that he picked on in terms of good examples with local authorities engaging with communities, explaining the issues, involving them. I think there are kind of lessons more widely in terms of good engagement in highways, I think.
Andrew?
Yeah, just a comment, and really it's about the waste that this industry still carries, and I would agree that there is waste. Some of it is easier to get to than others. If you looked at the report that came out of the National Infrastructure Plan, then I was asked quite early on to try and sort of understand what it was they were looking at. Is it the price of concrete in UK is different from the price of concrete, or a kilometre of rail in France? And you have to begin to put the onion skins back on top of that. If you look at the specification that we have over here, if you look at how we maintain and operate it, culturally, UK is very different from some of the European railways. If you then put on the planning overlay, and you then put on some of the sort of political overlay, because no one really wants a railway line in their back garden compared to France, there's a lot of reason why a kilometre of high-speed rail in UK is different from a kilometre of rail elsewhere. Go down a level and have a look at how we buy stuff. We decide that we'd prefer to have a client, probably then a designer, probably a designer passing stuff over to a supplier, probably a supplier passing over to someone who maintains and someone else who decides to operate. Every time we have one of those vertical lines, we are locking in 2 or 3 or 4% of waste. The number of those lines you can get rid of by working together in an integrated way is taking out some of that locked-in waste. It's worse than that, because if you look vertically, we then have supply chains, first tier, second tier level. The really good ideas probably coming from the 3rd or the 4th tier. And every time you have a subcontract and you pass the risk down, then you are locking in waste again. So this industry is inherently inefficient. And where you get client organisations and people taking out the horizontal and the vertical lines of waste and working in the little boxes in between, then you can begin to peel the layers off and to understand the value. It is very difficult. We have to be very transparent about why a bus stop or a pelican crossing or a small piece of infrastructure appears to cost disproportionately. And we have as an industry to understand how we can peel those layers of waste back to give something that appears to be, even from an uninformed member of the public whose life isn't about built assets or infrastructure, that appears to be good value. We have to get to a place where we can actually demonstrably prove that we're giving good value.
Perhaps, David, I'll just put a final comment on that. I think, what you said was right, but actually, it's our responsibility to tell people. People don't understand what we do, they don't understand the cost of what we do, because actually, we're not very good at communicating that message, and we don't talk to people about it. So I think we've got a responsibility to ensure that people do understand that. And a lot of authorities, and the example that was in your presentation, Andrew, was around, trying to raise public awareness of actually how we are spending their money. And, it's an important aspect of our job that perhaps we haven't always focused on.
Okay, thank you, gents. George.
George Button, Adept. Could I just ask the panel's view on the government's sort of currently rather unsubtle approach to cost reduction? I mean, we've heard the stories of Francis Maud and the Cabinet Office and Tier 1 suppliers and just give us some money back approach. Regrettably, Eric Pickles is encouraging local authorities to meet with their suppliers and demand similar sort of cashback offers and so on. Are we really turning the clock back, do you think, and heading back to a period of confrontation? Have we learnt nothing? Could perhaps the panel comment?
Who's bursting to talk?
Yeah, no one wants to talk about that one. Yeah, I think it's obviously been a bit of a challenge, and as an organisation that has been in to see and been in the deal room and had to strike a deal with government on that, it was a very interesting period, and some questions that we weren't probably expecting to have to answer. But I mean, for a personal view now, I think rather on that is that I don't think that's necessarily the best way to approach it, and I think that. What government has been trying to do at the same time is basically encourage us to look for innovation in our organisations, work better together. We're getting that gentle encouragement from government to do that and that push. And I think what the Minister announced this morning in terms of the Highways Maintenance Efficiency Programme, is a big drive for that, and a show from the DFT that they are keen to help us together as an industry to work better and to encourage and promote that. So that's something clearly that from an HTMA perspective we're very keen to support. I think we are in danger though of the whole industry potentially spiralling into a thing where cost is king and prices being driven down to the absolute lowest level, a massive amount of competition in all sorts of tenders, and we're seeing variation of price coming in, and price being much more dominant now rather than the value or the quality of what's being done. I think we have to be very careful with that. I don't know what the answer is, but I think that's a real challenge for us, that we're just not cutting each other's throats to get to the the piece of work.
Yeah, I mean, this is about cost again. I mean, I would suspect that people wouldn't find it difficult to believe that the cheapest solution to a pothole is going to last you the shortest possible time. This supply chain can take on very few cycles of simply delivering the lowest cost, and clients will sort of will feel the pain if that is the policy and that's the direction of travel that people are going into. And there are organisations that are keeping their resources busy and occupied by actually buying projects right now, and some of the customers who are supporting that will regret the sort of systemic direction of travel. But there is a real need to demonstrate this balance between putting pressure on everyone involved in the process and therefore eliminating the waste, as I've said, and giving a longer-term value-based solution. And I think there's going to be pain on every part of the supply chain, including the customer, including the designers, including the contractors. I painted in an answer to the previous question the notion that there is plenty of waste to go for, and simply go to the person at the bottom of the chain and say do it for less cost is not a long-term and lasting solution. To bring the team around the table and to work out, if you're a client, how you can do things and specify things more logically. If you're a consultant, and my point about spending more money in design and consultant is not that the overall asset costs you more money, is that if you spend money in the right place, then by spending, for instance, more money on design, you should be able to bring the capital cost or the planning or the sequence of your work down. So this is not a sort of question to do. But yeah, we are all under pressure. This crisis is an opportunity for people to think differently and to innovate and to bring costs down sustainably rather than just taking a short-term pain that will burn out very quickly.
I would just say that the government's approach, I wouldn't say is just about saying pass this cost along. We want a reduction and pass it on. In fact, quite explicitly, I believe Francis has been quite clear to the major suppliers that have come in that this is not a cost you should be looking to pass on. It's a cost that you, as a major organisation, need to be handling and looking at how you can get greater efficiency in your organisation rather than squeezing your supply chain and the smaller suppliers further down the line. I think one major organisation made the mistake of actually trying to do that passing along when they were explicitly told not to. That changed radically, and I believe their global head had to apologise for it. We also have to, from a London perspective, we've demonstrated that it's not just what we're going to ask our suppliers to do, it's what we're going to do. And within TfL, there's been significant efficiencies, reorganisation, and driving through a lower cost option and model. And in fact, Peter Hendy has established a Project Horizon, which is reviewing the whole organisation and how it does things. I think, again, reiterating Andrew's point, this is an opportunity. And there's an opportunity to change the way we do things, the way we structure things, and that old adage of, well, we've always done it this way and it sort of worked. We have to change, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what Kulbi said, clearly, given the situation the government is in, the centre, at times will play tough in negotiations. But I think, and I hope the fact that the Minister was here today launching the efficiency programme at this conference shows there's a willingness, certainly on transport, that we see this as working together, collaboration. And I know, David, you've been involved from the very early stages of this programme. So I think, yes, there will be times when negotiations are tough, but I think we want to move towards a more kind of forward-looking, long-term, sustainable kind of collaboration to drive the efficiencies.
I mean, I have to say, I've been really fortunate over the last 3, 4, 5 years to chair the innovation forums that 2 or 3 of the main joint ventures that are delivering the MAC contracts on the Highways Agency Network. And I've been absolutely astonished about the level of innovation that's been coming forward, people thinking of doing things differently. A lot of it to do with safety, but a lot of it to do with cost. And the buzz in the room is actually palpable, and I guess that's what Andrew saw when he created that culture at Terminal 5. So I mean, Philip and I were at a conference at the Oval, the Local Transport Today conference. They asked me to say that, but the Local Transport Today conference at the Oval, and Philip said the challenge for us is for clients who are going to have their budget cut by between 20, 30, 40%. How could you deliver the same level of service to them but with a budget reduction of that? That's a challenge that is being put to us as the industry and the clients. And quite a few of the people said it's impossible. But I have to say, hearing some of the things that Andrew said and hearing some of the things, seeing some of the things that's happening on the ground, it is something that we ought to be aiming to do, but we'll not do it if we can't say we've always done it this way and that's the only way to do it. So it is an opportunity to try and see different things, and where are we now? It's actually happening now, but probably has to happen in an even greater degree in the future. We're at 10 to 11. Is anybody burning to ask a question, or is anybody burning to have coffee? It looks like coffee wins. So thank you very much for this session. We'll be back in here at 11:40. Where are we going? Where we will be starting the session with Steve Norris. Before you leave, and before you get excited, could I ask you to thank the speakers this morning for their contributions?